I'm Zoe Clark and this is my shop, The Cake Parlour. In today's videos I'm going to show you how to make and decorate a variety of cakes and confectionery. So in this video we're going to show you lots of different icing techniques. The first one's going to be icing a cake board. So to ice the cake board you'll need your board. This is going to be for a wedding cake, so usually the board is about 3 or 4 inches bigger than the largest tier, the tier that goes on the bottom. So you've got about a 2-inch gap or an 1.5 inch gap between the cake and the board. You'll also need spacers, and with this helps you roll out the icing evenly so you don't get parts that are thicker than others. I always roll out on a non-stick board, so I don't use any icing sugar, and use a non-stick rolling pin. So just roll the piece of sugar paste out evenly. You do a little bit one way, pick it up with a rolling pin, give it a 1/4 turn, and then just go again. If you get any crumbs or air bubbles in the icing while you're rolling, just use the needle just to pick them out. When you've rolled it out as far as you can, just check that it's big enough for your board. You can just sort of hover the board over, if it's big enough. And then pick the icing up and place it over the board. And then just gently go over the top with a smoother. And then with your smoother held at 45 degrees, just start trimming away the edge of the sugar paste and turning the turntable as you go. And the icing should just fall away from the cake board. So just go over the top again and use a knife just to cut away all the little bits left over. And then just gently go over the top with a smoother. So there's your iced cake board. What you need to do next is let that dry, ideally overnight. So when you stack your cake on top, it doesn't sink into the icing. And you can test it's ready just by tapping on the board and just making sure that there's no fingerprints in. And that's how to ice a cake board. So another really good icing technique is how to cover your cake. And we're using sugar paste, or some people call it rolled fondant. And what you need again is your non-stick rolling pin, spacers to roll out the icing evenly, some smoothers, and your cake. This cake here has already been covered in marzipan, but you could literally ice straight onto a cake that's just been layered and covered with a layer of buttercream or ganache. What you also need is to brush the cake with some clear alcohol. Usually we use vodka because there's no taste to it, and it just evaporates out when the icing goes on. So just brush a small amount all over the marzipan. This just helps the sugar paste stick to the marzipan. If you're doing a cake and someone requested to have no alcohol in it, you could just use cooled boiled water. So roll out the icing nice and evenly, go a little bit one way, pick up the icing, turn it and go the other way. And try and keep the icing nice and round. And then when you've got your icing completely rolled out, pick it up with your rolling pin and pop it over the cake. First of all, just trim away the excess icing if you've got lots of it. And then what you want to do is start with your hand, and you just want to make sure there are no air bubbles on the top, so just sort of push them out to the sides. And then using the inside part of your hand, cut the icing around the sides of the cake. If you put your cake on some greaseproof paper before you ice the cake, then you're able to turn the cake as you go. You don't want to put too much pressure onto the cake because you don't want fingerprints in the cake. So just do it really softly, but still letting it go down to the bottom and sticking to the sides. And again, trim away any icing that's hanging over the sides of the paper. And then with your smoother, go gently over the top and then start working around the sides. If you see any air bubbles, just push them to a point and pop them. And when you've got to this stage, what you need to do is use the point of your smoother just to work the icing down to the bottom and get a nice clean line to cut along to trim away the icing. And just go forward and then back and then turn the cake. Make sure when you ice the cakes that the light around you is a really nice light. Ideally, if you do it by a window, the daylight will help you see any bumps, lumps, and any air bubbles and things like that that you can just pop out. Just trim away the icing with a knife. And just go around the bottom again. Check one last time for air bubbles. So that's how to ice a cake.